Okay, well, welcome everybody on this rather chilly Melbourne day. My name's Bill Cope. I'm the director of Common Ground. Common Ground's a not-for-profit. You can tell from my accent that I've flown all the way from the United States. I work at the University of Illinois now, but before I moved there, I actually lived here in Melbourne, so I know what this weather's like, but I'd come from a rather hot and steamy US, and it's reminded me that there is such a thing as winter in Melbourne. So thank you for everyone for being here and braving winter. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you very much to our hosts for being so generous in bringing us the conference here to Monash in Melbourne. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the conference first, and I've got this in my hand here. There are 90 people here at the conference and 40 online. So it's one of these kind of small, interesting events where we can intensively work with each other on these rather important issues about sport and society. We have 15 different countries represented, so people have come from a long way away to be here. So a little bit just briefly about Common Ground before I hand over to if you're not familiar with the way we operate, this is a research network which has a number of kind of closely related activities. One is the annual conference where we jump around all over the world to interesting places and hosts that are willing to support us. So thank you for being here, coming, for those who've come from a long way away. We also have a journal and a whole body of work that we've built up over the years the conference has been running, dealing with these sort of, from a multidisciplinary perspective, these issues of sport and society. So one of the powerful things is we have a thematic focus rather than a disciplinary focus, which brings people from all different disciplines here. And it's part of a kind of a systematic process of building a body of knowledge in this area. So we have a peer review process where we'll kind of enlist you all as reviewers of each other's work, and then a journal. And one thing that comes as part of the conference is you have access to all the legacy material in the journal, and also a fantastic book series, really, really interesting series of books that members of the research network have produced over the years, all of which you have access to as well as ebooks through the login. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for being, most importantly, part of this kind of intellectual community, if you like, of people who are working with each other on these issues in a systematic kind of way. So everything is online, so what we've done is we've encouraged as many people as possible, or many people as able, to put digital media. So if you're a presenter, that's a great thing. One funny thing I'd like you to do, which you wouldn't do it normally at a conference, is every presenter has a page. So there's a limited space to have conversations after a session, but do go into that page and make comments, and that way you're sharing it with the larger global audience who are online as well. So that's just a brief kind of procedural intro as to what we're doing and why we're here. But the real purpose is to talk about these sport and society issues. So I'd like to begin by introducing the Associate Dean for Research here at the Research in the Faculty of Arts. I think I got that right, Brett Hutchins, who's going to welcome you here from the point of view of Monash University. So over to you, Brett.
Thanks, Bill. Please forgive my notes. I'm used to speaking with a lectern. First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of the Kulin Nations, and they are unceded, that I'm speaking as an uninvited migrant to these lands, and I extend my respects to Bunurong elders past and present, and to any First Nations people who are visiting or attending the conference either virtually and or online. In trying to ensure that the sort of commitment to anti-racism and acknowledgement of First Nations people that Monash claims, it's really quite important that we then think that through in terms of what Monash is doing quite practically. And I'd like to actually draw attention to the work of the Monash Indigenous Studies Centre here in the Faculty of Arts. It is the university's oldest research centre, starting life in 1964 as a centre for research into Aboriginal affairs, only 6 years after Monash opens its doors in 1958. I think in terms of the relevance for this conference, it started under the directorship of one Dr. Colin Tatz, who, for those of you who know anything about Australian sports studies, published any number of books on Australian sport, but a number of books, particularly on Indigenous athletes and sport, including a book that I read as an undergrad, or had assigned to me as an undergrad in 1995 called Obstacle Race, and I commend it to you if you have a chance. There's still copies floating around. Before I came in, I actually had a look at the Monash University Library catalogue, and I'm pleased to say that we still have 2 copies, one at Clayton campus, one on the Peninsula campus, which I don't know if anyone's here from Peninsula campus, but sometimes we forget, they sometimes forgotten that Monash has 4 Melbourne campuses and any number of international campuses. But it's a fantastic book, and it really is worth taking a look at and then contemplating where we've come from 1995 to 2025. I will also be speaking on Friday, so I'm also engaging you as a scholar myself. It's quite an interesting event for me. I've been at Monash since 2005, and to welcome people to a conference on sport is not something I actually thought I'd probably do, to be honest, given that it hadn't happened in 20 years. So I thank everyone who's made it possible. I thank you for being here. I thank the local organising committee led by Dr. Lucas Santos, Dr. Tom Heenan, Dr. Sam Duncan, and Miss Julie Tullberg, who have done really the hard lifting and actually making this possible. I'm also going to give you, before I just comment on the theme of the conference, a little bit of a, in Australian terms, as the crow flies, tour of the Caulfield campus. I'm actually going to stand on stage and point at things that I'm just going to ask you to imagine. So Monash Caulfield, as far as I'm concerned, so I'm just going to put my notes over here, is actually the true home of Monash. It was actually meant to be the original site of this university, except the Victorian Racing Club, I'm presently pointing through a building at a racecourse called the Caulfield Racecourse, would not sell. So it was then moved to Clayton and an old airstrip and a muddy sort of, well, as I say, there wasn't a lot there. I'll also say I work 4 days a week in the Menzies building, which is the original building of the university, and quite literally nothing has been done to it ever since in terms of anyone who's Lucas works in it, he knows. Now, as for those of you online, this is going to make no sense, and I'm just going to ask you to sort of be patient. But there is a road down here with a tram stop. If you head that way, you will see a half-decent cafe called Mr. Sister Cafe if you want a break. You'll also find Subway and McDonald's if you want to think about the relationship between sport and sponsorship. You will also find across the road the Racecourse Hotel if you actually want a break and a drink after it to get together with people and meet new friends and talk about the ideas that you've experienced over the day. It also has, unfortunately, extensive gambling facilities if you want to think about the relationship between sport and gambling. You also may need, if you actually want to get a bet on, some help from a health counsellor. We have a health and counselling centre just over here. If you are in fact sick or need a doctor, I'm quite serious. As the Deputy Dean of Research, some of the things I have to do around OH&S are perhaps unseen, but it is quite important that we do have doctors on campus if you wish to see them. Between the library over here, which is worth spending time on if you're actually doing your emails, you can sort of wander between the two buildings, you'll find the Monash Museum of Modern Art. And it's quite, it's worth a wander around because there's quite a, let's say, I wouldn't say controversial, but certainly a contested exhibition in there at the moment in which a Palestinian artist was subject to some pretty unpleasant sort of public treatment, and indeed the actual exhibition itself was postponed for a period. So please go and take a look and support our artists. Food, the racecourse, the railway station. I'm trying to think what Caulfield actually has to offer. Excellent public interchange point, actually, bus, tram and train. Out the back here, you will find, if you head around this way, you will find, I'm not kidding, in the entire Melbourne tram network, which is incredibly extensive, the shortest space between 2 stops in the entire city. Goes for about 50 metres. So go and have a look if you're actually looking for a distraction. However, if you are standing there, you'll actually find some decent food options. Enjoy your time here is my appeal to all of you. As I say, I'm kind of, Lucas wouldn't know this, I am, as he constantly reminds me, even though I already know it, I'm quite busy. Now, over the course of the conference, we'll be attending, but also be needing to do my job as well. But I do think the title of the conference is actually really quite important to think about. Local cultures, global sports, the global trends, powers, forces and processes that influence the way sport is thought about, represented, played and acted, as well as the physical cultures and leisure practices that actually drive what we understand it all to be. But depending on where we're from, the sorts of sports we play or the environments we exist in, for anyone here from Northern Europe, you will find very few Australians who know a hell of a lot about winter sports, although we do have snowfields not that far away. As opposed to water sports, swimming and so on. And I'd actually encourage everyone to come together and actually think about the tensions, the commonalities, but also the unique features and the potentials. I really hope everyone has a fantastic conference and over the next 2 days makes new acquaintances, finds out about new research, new researchers, literature, but really tries to think through in every way possible how to make sport and physical culture more sustainable, more livable, more satisfying, more healthy, and really try and work out how we can then extend that out into educational and research outcomes at all our institutions. I thank everyone for being here, and I look forward to speaking to you over the next couple of days. Thank you.